And then he looks at me and his eyes are real wide and he just goes, "Maybe coming."
Welcome to 10-Minute Travels. With me, as always, is Shane Patrick.
And with me, as always, is Phil Freeman. Tonight we're going to be talking with Ryan Skorecki, helicopter pilot flown all over the world. If you want to learn more about him or other things we talked about at 10-Minute Travels, check us out at 10minutretravels.com.
Let's get right to it, shall we?
So there's one pretty, one pretty interesting medical evacuation experience you had in Nepal.
Yes. Yep. There are lots of. There are lots, but one stood out, and it happened in Simikot, which is that village I was explaining, right? And
the Kailash pilgrimage place.
Mm-hmm. And it's that village far northwest Nepal, and because Simikot has a runway, it acts kind of like as a hub for, there's hundreds of villages, near Simikot that all will use Simikot as like the base of things. And if you have a serious medical problem or whatever, you got to go to Simikot because there's a runway there. Otherwise, it's like a 3-week walk to get out of the hills to Scorecki, which is like one of the closest larger town that would have like full on facilities, and it would be like a town instead of a village in the hills. And but so most of the runways in Nepal typically have Nepali police who kind of just make it a controlled environment and keep everyone away. And but when you land in villages that don't have an airport with Nepali police, then you got to be careful because people will swarm the machine, and it happens, unfortunately, about every year. Someone walks into the tail rotor, and it happened in Simikot right after I left. A guy walked right into the tail rotor, took his head off, or killed him. But anyway, so in Simikot, that particular day, remember I told you can only do 10 trips, and then they cap it.
Yep. And
so I had done my 10th run. And so normally at that point, you'd come back and we're done. But the guy who, I don't want to say he was my manager, but there was a guy named Yubraj, which in Nepali means the prince. That kind of cracked me up. But Yubraj was he would tell me what the plan was. Like in the morning, he's who would tell me, okay, you got, the first flight's going to be at this time and all this stuff. Anyway, so he tells me that we have a rescue flight. And I said, okay. And his English is really bad, but much better than my Nepali. But yep, he tells me, Captain, rescue flight. And then he explains that we're going to land at the clinic in Simikot because the lady that we need to fly is too ill to be brought to the airport. And so I'm like, all right. And then we're going to take her to Nepalgans, which is that hottest city in Nepal, like right on the border. So we're going to fly past Scorecki, right? Scorekki's the closest kind of larger city, but we're going to go another 20 minutes past that to get to Nepalgans. And so because we're going to land at a spot where there aren't Nepali police, we load up Yubraj, and then 3 other guys get in the back. And the plan is like we're going to land, and then as soon as we touch down, the doors open, and those guys get out to keep all the people away. And so that happens. Yeah, we come in, like I circle over, I'm landing like in this courtyard in front of the makeshift clinic. And as soon as I land, the people all exactly like you'd imagine. They all just everyone wants to get close to this machine, And so Yubraj and the other 3 guys, they all get out and keep everyone away. And then they bring over this young lady, and they put her in the seat right behind me. And then they put 3 other guys in the back. And then we have a double seat, like the passenger, like called the love seat, So 2 other people can sit up front. So they put this old man who they help like walk over, his knee was messed up or something. So he's going to go to the hospital as well. And then Yubraj gets in next to him and closes the door. Excuse me. And we take off, and now we're cruising for Nepalgans. And the old man, like almost within minutes of us being in the air, he starts throwing up. And so Yubraj hands him one of the airsick bags, which the company that I worked for reasons unknown, the airsick bags are just paper bags, like a lunch bag. So as you can imagine, after a few minutes, the bottom falls out, it's not designed to handle wet vomit.
Right, so he lost his lunch, the lunch bag lost it.
So, of course, it stinks. I got the windows open, and it's getting hotter and hotter because we're descending to this.
Your mood's improving.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, my God. And Yubraj is screaming at him in Nepali. and finally, Yubraj gets him a plastic bag, but there's still puke all over his pants and the floor and everything. It's gross. And then and I'm just like, please, let's just get to Nepalgans and be done with this, And then a few minutes later, I can feel like the back of my seat shaking. And so I'm like, what's going on now? And I turn around and the guys who had been sitting down, in the seats back here they're standing up, but facing backwards because they can't face forward because Yubraj and that old man are here, so the only place physically where they can like stand up and bend over is if they are facing backwards. Hopefully that makes sense. But if you try to stand up in an A-star full, you'd know what I mean. Like they have to face backwards. And so then I said to Yubraj, so Yubraj has a headset on, right? And I of course have my helmet on, and so we can talk to each other. No one else has headsets on. And I said to Yubraj, K cha, which that means what's happening. and then he looks back, and then he looks at me, and his eyes are real wide, and he just goes, "Baby coming." So I was like, and at that point we were over Scorecki, still got 20 minutes to get to Nepalgans. And so I asked him, like, do we, should I land at Scorecki, like Scorecki now? And he looks back at her and he says, nope, Nepalgans. And so I said, all right. So then at that point I call the Nepalgans tower and I'm talking to the controllers there. And they speak very good English. All the controllers speak really good English. So I told him, hey, I need an ambulance to meet us there. We got a woman that's in labor right now and with complications. The whole reason we're taking her to Nepal is the complications of labor, and she's in labor. So the tower, the guy says to me, "We will arrange it." Those were his exact words. And I said, "Okay, thanks." And then so it's like I'm approaching the ramp there, and I asked him, "Where's the ambulance?" I landed first, assuming then the ambulance will come around the corner. I land, shut down, and then I ask him, "Where's the ambulance?" And the guy tells me, "Oh, we didn't call one." And at that point I was pissed, I was like, "You told me you would arrange it. Why did you not call an ambulance? I told you we needed an ambulance." I was so angry at him. And I just turned the radio off and then we called an ambulance. And so then the ambulance, of course, takes another 10 or 15 minutes to arrive. Meanwhile, I look in the back and the woman is just laying there. And then there's like this pile of blankets, and I pointed, in Yubraj, I pointed like the baby, it's, like in there in the blankets. And he says, yeah. And I was like, oh man, it's totally covered up, which to me meant that it had died. Right. And then he could see in my face that I was kind of bummed, and then he said, no, tik cha, which means it's all good. It's all good. Or it actually literally means good it is, tik cha. Like, so K cha is you're saying like, almost like you're saying happening what? Or K cha is it is. So you're saying what it is, like what's happening, what it is. And tik cha means good it is. Good it is. So anyway, he's tik cha, and then he pulls the thing back and yep, the baby's alive and well, just wrapped up in a blanket. Meanwhile, it's 115 degrees or whatever it was. But so then I had a bottle of water to like icing on the cake of the story. I was so pissed at the controllers for not calling the ambulance. I had an unopened bottle of water, and it is like roasting hot, like beside myself at how hot it was. And so I tell the husband of the woman, who's one of the three guys that came with us, and I forget how I said it because he didn't speak any English. But basically, like, she just, there's, of course, as you'd imagine, there's blood all over the place. I mean, she just gave birth in the back of this machine. And so I'm telling him, like, she should drink this, considering she's lost a lot of blood and it's as hot as it is. And he tells me thanks and takes it and drinks half the bottle, and then he hands it to one of the other guys who finished it, and they didn't give any to her. I was like, you got to be kidding me. But then, they sent me a picture of the mom and the kid like 3 weeks later. And they're all, it was great success. Tulo Safalta. Everybody's, they're all both happy and healthy.
So while that was happening, was there anything going through your mind, while you guys were still up in the air, aside from, I'm going to land?
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably should have landed at Scorecki. If I was familiar with Scorecki, I would have. If I was more familiar, I had spent a night in Scorecki before. In 2016, I spent one night there. So that's the extent of my experience in Scorecki. Like, had I known what kind of hospital was there and where it was, I probably would have just gone there with her instead of waiting another 20 minutes.
Right.
But I know ultimately they wanted to go to Nepalgans, and I don't know. It seemed like when Yubraj told me to just continue on to Nepalgans, like the kid had already come out, so like the labor was over at that point. I didn't know that at the time, but
and in that society, they wait a year to give children names, right?
Yeah, they have many rituals. That's one they wait to name the kid. So
it's been more than a year, right?
What is it? It's the 19th, I think, today. I mean, it was right around now. I bet it's almost been exactly a year, because I left Simikot about a week later, and then was in Kathmandu for a couple days, and then I flew back to the U.S. June 2nd. So we're really close.
Well, do you think they're going to name it Scorecki or A-Star or H125 or something?
So in Nepali, Tara means star. So that was my suggestion, something along those lines. After the helicopter. I don't think they want to call it Ryan. Call the girl Ryan. But we'll see. I made it my mission. I sponsored the kid, so I send in the mom's name. I made a point to set it up so that it's in the mom's name, because I don't trust the dad after I watched him
after the water incident.
So I send the mom money every month, like for the daughter that supposedly makes it to her, but we'll see. They have some strange. One of the funny. Speaking of strange customs that they have in that part of Nepal, I remember I was introduced to a guy and his wife at one point, and then I was looking at and I had also met the guy's brother, the younger brother, and at one point I was talking to another Nepali who spoke really good English. He had actually spent a bunch of time in the U.S. and whatnot, and I was asking him, "Hey, what's Gorkha's so it was BJ and Gorkha, the two brothers, and I knew who BJ's wife was, and so then I said, pointing to this other woman, I said, "Is that Gorkha's wife?" Because they were I'd see them a lot together, and my friend said, his name is Rinjan. Rinjan says, like, no, that's not Gorkha's wife. That's Gorkha's wife. And I said, "But that's BJ's wife." And he said, "Yes." And I was like, "Wait a minute." And then he proceeded to explain to me this whole concept of, I never heard even the word before, but polyandry, which is the custom of when a man marries a woman there, she also marries all of his younger brothers as a way to keep property. Like, so of course I asked, like, what's the advantage of that? And they said, well, it keeps property in the family. And then, like, if the husband has to go off and either fight in some war or go hunting or whatever, then there's someone with a vested interest that's back at home that's keeping an eye on all the property and taking care of the wife and whatnot. I was like, wow, okay. And he even showed me there's a whole book on the subject, but I'd never seen that before or even heard of that before.
That was Ryan Skorecki, helicopter pilot extraordinaire. If you want to learn more about him or anything else we talked about at 10 Minute Travels, check us out at 10minutetravels.com.
And we want to remind you to make sure that your sense of humor matches your sense of adventure.
And please like, subscribe, and share this podcast on all the platforms.